The applause lasted exactly 47 seconds. Not because the audience was polite, not because they were instructed, but because every single person in that ballroom understood they were witnessing something that would never happen again. Bruce Lee stood at the podium, hands gripping the edges, tears streaming down his face. The man who had never shown weakness. The man who could drop any fighter in 3 seconds. The man whose eyes never wavered, never flinched, never betrayed emotion. He was crying. And 800 people watched in absolute silence as the most dangerous man in the room became the most vulnerable. This is what happened on November 14th, 1972, the night Bruce Lee broke. But not the way you think. Before we go further, you need to understand something about Bruce Lee that most people never saw. In training, in competition, in every confrontation he ever faced, Bruce maintained absolute control. His face revealed nothing. His breathing never changed. His heart rate stayed steady, even when facing opponents twice his size. Dan Inosanto, his closest student, once said that training with Bruce was like training with a machine. There was no emotion, only execution, only precision, only the relentless pursuit of perfection. But inside, Bruce felt everything. He felt every rejection from Hollywood like a knife wound. He felt every whispered insult about Chinese actors. He felt every moment when a producer looked at him and saw only his ethnicity, not his ability. He just never let anyone see it. Until November 14th, 1972. Let me take you back to Hong Kong. The Peninsula Hotel, the largest ballroom in the city, transformed for the annual Asian Film Awards. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, the smell of expensive perfume and cigarette smoke mixing in the air. Every major producer, director, and star in Hong Kong cinema was there. This was the industry's most prestigious night. Bruce Lee arrived at 7:45 p.m. He wore a simple black Mandarin collar jacket. No yueli, no flas. While other stars arrived in limousines with entourages of 10, Bruce came with only Linda, his wife, and Mito Lahara, his longtime friend and student. The room noticed immediately. Whispers spread from table to table. That is him, the one from the American television. The one who just finished filming that kung fu movie. The one who Hollywood rejected. Bruce found his assigned table. Number 14. Near the back. Not the front where the established stars sat. Not the VIP section where the studio executives gathered. Table 14. The table for newcomers. He sat down without complaint. This was significant. The Bruce Lee of 10 years ago would have demanded a better table. Would have made a scene. Would have proven his worth through confrontation. But the Bruce Lee of 1972 understood something different now. He understood that real power does not need to announce itself. Real strength does not require validation from others. Real mastery is sitting at table 14 and knowing that by the end of the night, everyone would wish they had given you table 1. Linda touched his hand. "Are you okay?" "I am fine," Bruce said. His voice was calm, but Linda knew him better than anyone. She could see the tension in his jaw, the slight tightening around his eyes. Tonight meant more to him than he was letting on. You see, this was not just another awards ceremony for Bruce Lee. This was Hong Kong, the city that had rejected him. Twice. When Bruce was 13 years old, his father sent him away from Hong Kong. Too many street fights. Too much trouble. The boy was becoming a liability. So Li Hoi Chen, the famous Cantonese opera star, put his son on a boat to San Francisco with $100 in his pocket. Bruce spent the next 14 years in America. Building, training, teaching, fighting. He became the most sought-after martial arts instructor in Hollywood. Steve McQueen studied with him. James Coburn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Roman Polanski. He taught them all. But when Bruce auditioned for the lead role in Kung Fu, the television series based on his own concept, the studio executives looked at him and said no. Too Chinese for American audiences. They gave the role to David Carradine, a white actor, playing a half-Chinese monk, using techniques Bruce had developed. The meeting where Bruce learned this news was held in a small office on the Warner Brothers lot. 3 executives sat across from him. They avoided his eyes. They spoke in corporate language about audience demographics and market research and international distribution concerns. What they meant was simple. America was not ready for a Chinese hero. Bruce sat in silence for the entire meeting. He did not argue. He did not plead. He did not explain that he had spent his entire life preparing for this role, that he had developed the concept, that no one in the world was more qualified. He simply stood up when the meeting was over, shook each executive's hand, and walked out. The drive home took 45 minutes. Linda was waiting. She knew something was wrong the moment Bruce walked through the door. His face was calm. His movements were controlled. But there was something in his eyes she had never seen before. What happened? Bruce sat down at their kitchen table. He was silent for a long time. Then he said 4 words. "We're going to Hong Kong." Linda did not ask why. She did not need to. She began packing that night. So Bruce returned to Hong Kong, the city that sent him away, and he was not sure if he would be welcomed back. The Big Boss opened in October 1971. Bruce played a simple man who worked in an ice factory. When his cousins were murdered by the factory owner, he systematically destroyed everyone responsible. The film broke every box office record in Hong Kong history. People lined up around the block. Theaters ran the film 6 times a day and still could not accommodate the crowds. Within 3 weeks, The Big Boss had earned more than any film in Hong Kong history. And it was not just the action that captivated audiences. It was Bruce himself. For the first time, Chinese audiences saw a hero who looked like them, who fought like them, who embodied their values and their struggles. Bruce played Chen Chowan, a simple man who comes to Thailand to work in an ice factory. When his cousins are murdered by the corrupt factory owner, Chen does not call the police. He does not seek help from authorities. He handles it himself. The final fight sequence lasted 12 minutes. Bruce, bare-chested, facing off against the villain and his army of thugs. One by one, he destroyed them all. The choreography was unlike anything audiences had seen. Fast, brutal, real. When the film ended, audiences did not just applaud. They roared. Fist of Fury followed. Then Way of the Dragon. Each film bigger than the last. Each film proving what Hollywood refused to see. And now, November 14th, 1972, Bruce Lee sat at table 14, waiting to find out if his own people would recognize what he had done. The ceremony began at 8 p.m. For 2 hours, awards were presented. Best Cinematography, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director. Names were called. People walked to the stage. Speeches were given. Applause was offered. Bruce watched quietly. Linda noticed he was not eating. His plate of Cantonese shrimp sat untouched. He sipped water. Nothing else. At one point, she leaned close to him. "Are you nervous?" Bruce considered the question. In the ring, he was never nervous. Facing an opponent, his mind became perfectly clear. Every movement was calculated. Every response was automatic. But this was different. In the ring, he controlled the outcome. Here, in this ballroom, 800 other people would decide his fate. "I do not know what I am," Bruce said finally. "I have never felt this way before." It was the most honest thing he had said all night. At 10:15 p.m., the presenter walked to the podium for the final award of the evening. The award Bruce had not expected to win. The award he had not even allowed himself to hope for. Best Actor. The presenter opened the envelope. The room fell silent. For his extraordinary performances in The Big Boss and Fist of Fury, the award for Best Actor goes to... The presenter paused, looked up, smiled. Lee Yunfeng. Bruce Lee. The room exploded. Not polite applause. Not respectful acknowledgement. Something else entirely. Something Bruce had never experienced. 800 people rose to their feet simultaneously. The sound was overwhelming. Clapping, shouting, whistling. Table after table, every person in that ballroom standing, turning toward table 14, where Bruce Lee sat frozen in his chair. The sound echoed off the crystal chandeliers. It reverberated against the tall windows overlooking Victoria Harbor. It filled every corner of the massive room until there was nothing else. Just sound. Just acknowledgement. Just 800 people saying what Bruce had waited 20 years to hear. "We see you." Linda was crying. Mito was grinning. But Bruce did not move. He could not move. because in that moment, something inside him cracked open. You have to understand what Bruce Lee had endured to reach this night. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. The rejection started early. When Bruce was 18, working as a busboy in Seattle, a customer looked at him and said, "You people should go back where you came from." Bruce said nothing. He cleared the plates. He went home. He trained for 4 hours that night, perfecting his 1-inch punch until his knuckles bled. When Bruce was 24, a studio executive watched a screen test and said, "He is too short, too ethnic. American audiences will never accept a Chinese leading man." Bruce said nothing. He went home. He developed Jeet Kune Do, his own martial arts philosophy. He trained harder. He became better. When Bruce was 28, after years of teaching Hollywood's biggest stars, after appearing on the Green Hornet, after developing the concept for Kung Fu, after proving himself again and again and again, they gave his role to David Carradine. Bruce said nothing. He went to Hong Kong, and he made 3 films that changed cinema forever. Now, at 32 years old, Bruce Lee sat at table 14, listening to 800 people scream his name. And all those years of silence, all those swallowed rejections, all that controlled rage and focused determination, it broke through. The tears came. Not sobs. Bruce Lee did not sob, but tears, real tears, streaming down his face as he finally began the long walk to the stage. The applause continued. Second one, Bruce passed table 12. The producers who had doubted him were on their feet, clapping. Second 2, Bruce passed table 10. The directors who had said he was too small were shouting his name. Second 3, Bruce passed table 8. The actors who had called him just a stuntman were reaching out to touch his shoulder. Second 4, Bruce passed table 6. The studio executives who had given him back corner billing were wiping their own eyes. Second 5, Bruce passed table 4. The critics who had dismissed Kung Fu as circus tricks were silent, reverent, in awe. Second 6, Bruce passed table 2. The stars who had sat in the VIP section were turned completely around, watching him approach. Second 7, Bruce reached the stairs to the stage, and the applause was still building. 47 seconds of unbroken acknowledgement. 47 seconds of an entire industry admitting they had underestimated him. 47 seconds of vindication. Bruce climbed the 3 steps to the stage. The presenter handed him the Golden Award. The microphone waited. The applause finally began to fade. Bruce looked out at the audience. His eyes were red. His face was wet, but his voice, when he spoke, was steady. "I have prepared nothing to say." A pause, because I did not believe you would choose me. The audience was absolutely silent now. You could hear the ice settling in water glasses. You could hear the chandeliers humming with the building's electricity. When I was a boy in this city, I was known for fighting, for causing trouble, for being too angry, too proud, too Chinese. Bruce paused, looked down at the award in his hands. My father sent me away. I understand why. I was difficult. I was stubborn. I was convinced I knew better than everyone. Another pause. I still am. Laughter. Warm. Understanding. But I learned something in America. I learned that being Chinese is not a limitation. It is not something to hide. It is not something to apologize for. His voice was rising now, not shouting, but intensifying. I learned that our martial arts, the systems our ancestors developed over thousands of years, are not circus tricks. They are not movie choreography. They are philosophy. They are science. They are the most sophisticated fighting systems ever created. The audience was leaning forward, every word landing like a punch. And I learned that the world was ready to see what we have always known, that a Chinese man can be a hero, that a Chinese man can be strong and intelligent and capable, that a Chinese man can lead. Bruce lifted the award. This is not just for me. This is for every Chinese actor who was told they could only play servants and villains. This is for every Chinese artist who was told their culture was not commercial enough. This is for every Chinese child who will grow up in a world where people who look like them are finally on the screen as heroes. The words hung in the air. Every person in that ballroom understood what Bruce was saying. For decades, Chinese actors in Hollywood had been limited to servants, villains, comic relief. Fu Manchu, the mysterious other, the dangerous foreigner. Bruce was not just accepting an award. He was issuing a declaration. Those days are over. He paused, looked directly into the audience. Hong Kong sent me away. I'm grateful. Murmurs of confusion, because it made me strong enough to come back. The applause erupted again, even louder than before. But Bruce was not finished. He raised his hand. The room quieted. There is one more thing I must say. He looked toward table 14, toward Linda. Everything I have done, everything I have become, everything I will ever accomplish is because of this woman. Linda Lee believed in me when no one else did. She followed me from Seattle to Oakland to Los Angeles to Hong Kong. She raised our children while I trained for 18 hours a day. She held our family together when Hollywood rejected me. She never doubted. Not once. Linda was weeping openly now. The entire room was looking at her. What Bruce did not say, what the audience could not know, was the full extent of Linda's sacrifice. When they first married, Bruce had nothing. They lived in a tiny apartment in Oakland. Bruce gave Kung Fu lessons for $3 an hour. Linda worked as a waitress to help pay the rent. When Bruce's back injury in 1970 left him bedridden for 6 months, Linda managed everything. The bills, the children, the household. She never complained. She never suggested he find another career. She believed. When Bruce returned from Hong Kong after the Big Boss became a phenomenon, the first thing he did was buy Linda a gold bracelet. It was simple, not expensive. But inside, he had engraved 4 words. You were always right. Linda wore that bracelet every day. She was wearing it tonight. This award is hers. I'm only holding it for her. The applause that followed was different. Softer, more intimate. The sound of 800 people who understood they were witnessing something sacred. Bruce walked off the stage. He did not go to the press area. He did not pose for photographs. He walked directly to table 14, handed the award to Linda, and kissed her. The flashbulbs exploded. The photographers finally had their shot, but they had missed the real moment. The real moment came later. After the ceremony, after the congratulations, after the handshakes and the business cards and the promises of future collaborations. Bruce and Linda walked alone along the Hong Kong waterfront. The Victoria Harbor lights reflected on the water. It was nearly 2 a.m. The city was quiet at this hour. The ferries had stopped running. The street vendors had packed up their stalls. Only the water made sound, lapping gently against the concrete seawall. Linda still held the award. Bruce was quiet for a long time. He watched the lights of Kowloon across the harbor. He watched the occasional boat passing in the darkness. He breathed the salt air that he had known as a child, the same air he had breathed before his father sent him away. Then he spoke. I almost did not go tonight. Linda looked at him. I was afraid, Bruce said. Afraid they would not choose me. Afraid I would sit there all night and watch someone else win. Afraid that Hong Kong still saw me as the troubled boy who was sent away. Linda took his hand. But you went. I went. Bruce looked out at the harbor. The water was black, reflecting the city lights. And they saw me. Finally, they saw what I have been trying to show them for 20 years. Linda squeezed his hand. The boy who was sent away, she said. The man who came back. Bruce nodded. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Bruce turned to her. I want to make one more film. Something different. Something that shows everything I believe. A story about a martial artist who enters a tournament on an island, who faces every style, who proves that there is no best style, only best fighters. Linda smiled. You already have a story written? Bruce grinned. That familiar grin. The one that had charmed Hollywood. The one that had terrified opponents. The one that Linda had fallen in love with all those years ago in Seattle. I have been writing it in my head for 10 years, Bruce said. I just needed to know that people would watch. Linda held up the award. I think they will watch. Bruce laughed. A real laugh. Open and free. He took her hand. They walked along the waterfront in comfortable silence. Then Bruce stopped. He turned to face the harbor. I want you to know something, he said. Linda waited. Whatever happens from here, tonight was enough. Tonight, I proved that I was right, that a Chinese man can be a hero, that our martial arts are not tricks or myths, that we belong on the screen as much as anyone. He paused. Even if I never make another film, tonight was enough. Linda put her arm around him. You will make another film, she said. You will make many more. Bruce smiled. I know, but I wanted you to understand. This is not about fame. This is not about money. This is about something larger than me. Something that will continue long after I am gone. They walked back to the hotel arm in arm. 6 months later, Enter the Dragon began filming. Bruce Lee would not live to see its premiere. On July 20th, 1973, just 3 weeks before the film's release, he died in Hong Kong. He was 32 years old. But the night of November 14th, 1972, he did not know that. On that night, he only knew that he had finally been seen. The night of November 14th, 1972, changed something in Bruce Lee. Not his training, not his philosophy, not his approach to martial arts. It changed what he believed was possible. Before that night, Bruce fought against limitations. After that night, he transcended them. The scripts he wrote became bolder. The choreography became more innovative. The characters became more complex. And when Enter the Dragon began filming in January 1973, Bruce brought everything he had learned to the role. The island, the tournament, the villain Han with his metal claw, the Hall of Mirrors. Every element of that film was designed to showcase not just martial arts, but philosophy. Not just fighting, but meaning.